What kind of queer South Asian representation do I want to see in the future? I want to see queer representation across the spectrum. I think being a trans woman of color and having a part in this show is really important because we not only get kind of a very cis binary viewpoint, but we also get a viewpoint from someone who is a trans woman of color in this show. And that's super important. The kind of representation we see from South Asian folk is generally cisgender people along the binary and in stories that don't involve things like sex work and queerness.
I think what Insomnia does so beautifully and so poignantly is it gives life to a human being regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their sexual orientation. And I think what we are starved for at present is seeing fully three-dimensional human beings regardless of their sexuality. We often see characters who are queer or who identify as queer in a very two-dimensional, almost stereotypical way. We see them as the sidekick or the best friend or the, you know, quirky comic relief. We don't often see queer people living their truth and experiencing it as a normal human being. On the flip side of that, I think we also see a lot of the queer experience as something that is incredibly burdening and something that is, you know, part of a tumultuous part of these people's lives. There is a middle ground where queer people can just be queer people without having to wave a flag, without having to suffer, without having to have some sassy quips attached to their, you know, dialogue. But I think what's so great about Insomnia, what Vishaal has done so well, is create characters that are just queer, and that is fine. And we don't have to harp on that. We don't have to, you know, raise the banner. But I think what it's doing in turn is actively raising the banner. It is actively shining a light on people who are underrepresented, specifically queer people of color. We don't often see. I think we're starting to see those people. We're starting to see some representation. But what would be nice is to see more of that, to make it more of a norm so that people across the world, across the country can actually see this as a normal human being.
There's an intense cultural stigma surrounding South Asian queerness. In the world that people who lie at this intersection of identity, they don't really feel welcomed by their cultural identity and their queerness, and they don't really feel welcomed in their queerness by their cultural identity. And so it's very rare that you find a outlet for both of those things to be represented at once. There's an intense need for it because there's an entire community out there that has been erased by the current state of television.
I think the show itself existing in this medium is so important. It's different than a play because a lot of people don't have financial access to theater, also theaters in one specific locale. This is a show where you can turn on your TV and you can watch and you can see these characters in your living room living these stories out.